In this brief demo, I'm just going to walk you through some of the key components of the secure control framework on CoreStream GRC with our intelligence layer powered by SANNOS. So first of all, just going to go in and briefly look at some of the library content. So in here we have the full security control framework, and we have mapped in a number of other frameworks. So for example, ISO 27001, NIST CSF2, PCI DSS, as just a few of the ones that have been mapped in. And then we can see those then mapped in controls. So if we were to take a SCF control, such as this particular one around cybersecurity and data protection governance, we can then see all of the mapped in controls in terms of SOC 2, 27001, the UAE assurance standard, PCI DSS, NIST CSF2. So that's then for across all of the various different SCF controls. So that's the starting library. Then within the reference data, we're able to create entities. So that can be in relation to a specific system or a specific entity in an organization or any other dimension. Now, the aim of this is very much to enable organizations to represent the fact that organizations have organizational elements in an organization have very specific requirements applied to that system or that data center or that particular entity. So here we can comply with elements as the SCF, for example, or we can comply with specified frameworks, and we can select then specific frameworks and so forth to select what we want to pick from the whole SCF library by different filters and apply it to that particular entity or system and so forth. Now within there, we can then generate an assurance cycle. So we can define which entities we want to apply it to, and then when the evidence is required to be provided against the relevant controls, and then when the assurance is going to be completed. So that it has to be later than the evidence request for obvious reasons. Now, what that generates then is based on the entities where we've got specific owners of content for a given system or data center or any other dimension, is those users in their My Area would get notification requests to provide evidence. So, for example, here, I need to provide evidence in relation to this particular SCF control in terms of automated tools for real-time analysis. And so I can select existing content from the library, or I can upload new content in here. And so what that's given me is the ability to hold libraries of content, as well and be able to select and reuse pieces of evidence, as well as upload new evidence against that particular content. In addition, I can then also provide attachments and content in relation to specific SCF controls I have locally, and so this particular one is in relation to third-party management. So it's bringing through all the various different elements of third-party management that are linked through to that particular area. Once the evidence has been uploaded, that then essentially goes off to our intelligence layer that's powered by SANNOS to perform an AI-based assessment of the evidence against the selected controls. So it understands the evidence provided and assesses the conformance level against that particular standard or set of controls we've selected. So for example, here for data center 3, we uploaded some evidence here based on real-time analysis for automated tools, intrusion detection, so IDS and IPS systems, and continuous monitoring. And so if we look at these, we can see the evidence that's been uploaded, and then the detail of the control that evidence is being assessed against. Now, it then returns the ratings based on the assessment. So we can see then we've got this particular objective about monitoring. And if we look at then the results, we can see that this is partially compliant, 33%. So, and it calls out the SOC 2 report documents that the environment generates audit events, but there are several gaps against the requirement. So we can see that it's calling out that the specific controls, the evidence didn't demonstrate achieving those controls in terms of against it, those specific controls, and therefore have gaps. Now that's all powered by the SANNOS capability. So it goes on to explain how we've got particular pieces of evidence in terms of across pages 47 and 49. So it describes the positives, but then it also describes where there are gaps influencing the score as well. So it helps you understand and piece together through that IA assessment capability, reviewing all of the evidence to determine the degree of conformance. So hence, then it's given a score rationale of 33. So it contains related monitoring and threat detection statements, but it lacks explicit objective level documentation, and goes on to explain it. It helps us understand where the evidence is from a positive sense, i.e. meeting the controls, but then outlines the particular risks, which we can then score, and what compensating controls we might have in place that could mitigate it. And then we understand what our gaps are that we can then turn into actionable recommendations. So what that enables us to do is, for any given entity, system, data center, and so forth, is essentially say, these are the SCF controls because we want to cover these particular frameworks for that system. And we're going to collect evidence once, assess it against the SCF, against the secure control framework, and then understand essentially how well we are meeting the secure control framework, but then also the associated mapped in controls from those, giving us the ability to do the control once, satisfy many, with the fact that because we control once, we evidence once, we assess it there, and we understand how many controls across other frameworks we are then satisfying in one process. Thank you for watching. Should you have any further questions, do get in touch.